Hi, I'm Wingsong Halo, and today I'm going to be continuing to read Lord of the Rings fanfiction called The Power of Starsfairy. This is Chapter 2, An Unexpected Revelation. So, I'll start that. 1. A continuation of longing for love. Legolas emerged from the woods, and to Aragorn's surprise, he was smiling a bright smile. His step was lighter than it had been before. Why is she always going on about how their feet are light and everything? Like, is it important that everybody has little doll feet? His step was lighter than it had been before, and he had a glow upon his face. Now, where is the depressed Legolas I once knew gone? He asked with suspicion. He has hidden himself in the trees, he said with a chuckle, and I have come to take his place. Aragorn laughed and looked at Legolas with delight. He had never seen his friend so happy in all the time he knew him. I have heard that the trees of the elves are wondrous and magical, he said with a smile, but I have never knew that they could turn my once depressed Legolas into a shining star. He chuckled. Now tell me what these beautiful trees have done to you. They have brought me love, replied Legolas with a shy smile. I have met a fair elven maiden by the name of Leonisa, whom you may otherwise know as Starsfairy. Aragorn suddenly backed away in horror. Leonisa? Starsfairy! He cried and shrieked. Legolas looked at him with a puzzled face. Why, Leonisa is so beautiful, gentle and pure, but you act as though she is an evil demon. Just as I suspected. As if she works for the Dark Lord of Mordor, Sauron. Aragorn looked at Legolas with fright in his eyes. He waved his hands about him, searching for somewhere to sit. By the way, if you hear rumbling, it's because it's thunderstorming in the background. He began to shudder and shake. Legolas quickly ran to his side and helped him to a stone bench. There Aragorn sat, with his hands clasped over his head. He would not speak. He sat silently and shook, rocking back and forth. Legolas did not know what had become of his beloved friend. What is it, Aragorn? Who is she? What has she done? Legolas said in a demanding and yet worried voice. Aragorn said nothing. Speak to me! Legolas screamed. Aragorn presently lifted his head. She is evil, he said with a shaky voice. She was once commanded by the Dark Lord. She led his armies and was his faithful servant. Aragorn's voice became clear again. Sauron thought that Leonisa would forever be in his command, but after the ring was taken away from Sauron, she fled here to Rivendell. Not Rivendell anymore, I guess. Now that the Dark Lord has returned, she has been seen going in and out of Rivendell. I think the Dark Lord has commanded her to retrieve the ring. She is after Frodo. At these words, Legolas backed away from Aragorn, and he slipped and fell of the stone bench. He lay sprawled on the floor, shaking his head and screaming, No! No! Starsfairy! Leonisa! No! Aragorn picked up Legolas and seated him back. Just picks him up and picked up Legolas and seated him back on the bench. Legolas was in a daze. He stared off into the woods before him, the woods where he had met his love. You just met her. He remembered her soft face, her golden hair, her eyes like stars, green stars, remember? And the gentle and passionate touch of her lips. How could this be? He looked at Aragorn with teary eyes. Aragorn shrugged his shoulders. I don't know, dude. He was saddened because he could not comfort his elf companion. Aragorn did not know how much Leonisa meant to Legolas. Yeah, I don't either. Even though they had just met. Yeah, seriously. Leonisa gave Legolas life. Alright. She made him happy. Even to think of her made Legolas's face light up with joy. Not anymore, apparently. I know in my heart that she is not evil. Why do you say such bad things about Starsfairy? Legolas's voice became stern and angry. He could not bear the thought that Starsfairy worked for Sauron. He stood up and quickly grabbed his bow, and with a quick movement of his hands, he had the arrow in place and pointing straight at Aragorn's head. Aragorn sat helpless on the stone bench, but he did not flinch. His eyes were gentle and kind, but his face was stern. He did not move or blink. He didn't even try to grab his own sword to protect himself. Instead, he smirked, then broke out into a smile. You love her, he said with a gentle voice. Legolas lowered his bow and started to back away from Aragorn, and his hands began to shake. He was surprised that he had even thought of hurting Aragorn. He dropped his bow and quiver on the floor. He stood in stunned silence. He looked then at Aragorn, who had remained seated. "Yes, I do love her," he said with a quivering voice. Aragorn looked at Legolas with his kind and gentle eyes. "Then your love is true." How do you know that? Seriously, just because he, stopped attacking? That doesn't make any sense. Legolas's mind suddenly cleared, and he looked at Aragorn with surprise of hearing this. "What?" he asked with a weak voice. "What?" "A love that is created so quickly is indeed true love." "No, it's the opposite. That's infatuation, or lust, call it whatever you want, or call it something out of a fairy tale, whatever. Anyway. "It cannot be helped. It cannot be broken. It is good and pure in every shape and form," Aragorn said as he looked up into the sky, thinking of his beautiful Arwen. "But you say she is evil. When I looked into her green, star-like eyes, I saw no evil. I only saw true goodness and pureness and beauty. How could that be?" Aragorn looked at Legolas with sympathy. He knew Legolas truly loved Leonisa. "Have you made plans to meet her again?" he asked, trying to cheer Legolas up. "Yes," Legolas said with a sudden burst of excitement. "She told me that on the hill where you found me mourning for love, that is where she shall meet me, but she never said when." Legolas suddenly realized that he may never actually get to see his beautiful Starsfairy ever again. Tears began to swell up in his eyes at the thought never seeing her again. "Then that means she is already waiting," Aragorn said as cheerfully as he could. "Then that means she is already waiting." I'm sorry if you barfed at that. Legolas looked up in wonder. It seemed like Aragorn wanted him to meet Leonisa again. He did not understand why, because he had spoken such evil of her. He looked at Aragorn with mysterious eyes, who looked so kingly and wise. Aragorn caught Legolas's watching eyes. He presently stood up and motioned with his hand toward the hills where Legolas had mourned. "Well, don't you want to see her again?" And that was chapter 2 of The Power of Starsfairy. So I'll see you in chapter 3.